8:17 local time. The forward gun mount on the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier powers up with a low mechanical hum. Steel shutters slide open, not suddenly and not for show, but just enough to be heard by the crew nearby. On the tactical display, one new symbol appears, then a second, then a third. There are no alarms and no raised voices. Instead, a quiet change moves across the bridge as sailors pause what they are doing and look toward the screens. The ship shifts to Condition 3. The order travels through the carrier smoothly and without being repeated. Key stations are manned. Ammunition magazines are unlocked. Helmets go on. No one asks questions because everyone already understands the meaning. 3 surface contacts are approaching from the southwest. Their speed is increasing and their formation is tightening. Radar operators refine the tracks as bearings update every few seconds. The numbers remain steady. Whoever is approaching knows exactly where they are going. Bridge-to-bridge radio calls are sent out. There is no response. Long-range optical systems zoom in and confirm what radar suggests. Low profiles, clear military silhouettes, no fishing equipment, no civilian markings. These are not commercial vessels. The captain does not raise his voice because he does not need to. His eyes remain fixed on the plot as the distance continues to shrink and the margin for error disappears. The closest point of approach drops under 4 miles. The aircraft carrier maintains its course. There is no evasive maneuver and no warning flare. There is only presence. On the flight deck, a fighter squadron is already moving in a slow, deliberate way, with every action recorded and every second logged. Then the identification resolves on the screen. Venezuela. 3 Venezuelan warships are closing quickly inside international waters. No missiles are launched. No shots are fired. This is not an attack. It is a test of proximity, a measure of how close they can come. And the carrier does not need to move at all. 8:19 local time, 2 minutes after the first contact appeared. The distance continues to close. Inside the Combat Information Center, vectors update at steady intervals. The 3 surface contacts maintain a tight arrowhead formation, their course fixed directly toward the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier. There is no zigzagging and no hesitation. This is not casual navigation. It is deliberate movement. X-band radar confirms the speed increase. 18 knots, then 21, then 24. It is not maximum speed, but it is fast enough to clearly communicate intent. The closest point of approach continues to decrease. The report is short and requires no clarification. On the bridge, the carrier holds both course and speed. There is no adjustment of any kind. The ship does not maneuver around uncertainty. Everything else maneuvers around it. Bridge-to-bridge hails are sent again, first in English and then in Spanish. There is still no response. Optical systems sharpen the image. Gray hulls, low superstructures, and forward-mounted guns are clearly visible. There is no fishing gear and no civilian identification. These are not patrol ships drifting into an accidental encounter. These are military vessels closing distance with purpose. The classification on the screen updates to Venezuelan Navy. Across the carrier, there is no visible reaction. No voices rise and no sudden movements follow. U.S. sailors have seen similar behavior in the Caribbean before, but this situation feels different. Naval activity in the region has increased in recent months, including shadowing and parallel courses. But most encounters stop before pressure is applied. This one does not. These ships are cutting the angle. The range drops below 10 nautical miles. At this distance, every maneuver carries meaning. A slight turn can be seen as weakness. A sudden increase in speed can be read as escalation. In close waters, restraint is not passive. It is calculated. So the aircraft carrier does nothing. There is no course change, no speed adjustment, and no warning signal. Only tracking and documentation continue. On the flight deck, movement remains calm and methodical. No one runs. Aircraft remain secured. Deck crews follow readiness procedures without urgency. Pilots are placed on standby, but no one enters a cockpit. Everything stays within the safety envelope, even as that envelope grows smaller. 8:24 local time. One of the Venezuelan warships changes heading slightly, just enough to reduce the closest point of approach even further. The maneuver is subtle but clear. This is not drift. It is a probe. Every change is logged, including time, bearing, and speed. The data is collected not for retaliation, but for evidence. The aircraft carrier does not respond, not because the maneuver is missed, but because it is fully understood. The range drops under 6 nautical miles. At this distance, mistakes can escalate within minutes. A misunderstood radio call, a misread signal, or a helm correction taken too far could change everything. Still, there are no rushed decisions on the bridge. The captain studies the plot and then issues the only order given in several minutes: maintain course. This is not a show of force. It is a statement of control. In encounters like this, the side that changes behavior first is rarely the side in command. The 3 Venezuelan warships continue to close. 8:26 local time. The range drops again to 5 nautical miles. Navigation is no longer theoretical. Hulls are clearly visible through optical systems, and wake patterns begin to matter. Small rudder adjustments now carry meaning that cannot be taken back. Inside the Combat Information Center, tracking data stabilizes. The Venezuelan ships are no longer adjusting for currents or traffic. Their movements are synchronized. Speed remains constant and the formation stays tight. This is controlled pressure. The closest point of approach drops under 4 miles. No one raises their voice because no one needs to. Every officer on watch understands the math. At these speeds and distances, minutes matter. The carrier continues straight ahead. From the outside, it may appear passive, but it is not. Electronic support measures activate quietly. Emissions are logged. Radar sweeps from the approaching ships are cataloged by frequency, strength, and duration. Every signal provides information. The Venezuelan ships are active on radar, though they are not locking fire control systems. Not yet. 8:28 local time. The lead Venezuelan warship edges slightly ahead of the other 2, testing the carrier's bow line. It is a classic maneuver designed to apply pressure without crossing a clear line, forcing the other ship to choose between altering course or accepting proximity risk. The aircraft carrier does neither. The closest point of approach drops under 3 miles. On the flight deck, posture shifts in a precise but controlled way. A helicopter crew moves purposefully toward their aircraft. The rotors remain still. There is no spectacle and no show of force. This is preparation, not provocation. Below deck, authorization chains are confirmed and rules of engagement are reviewed. Everything remains defensive and fully legal. A quiet update reaches the bridge. The air asset is ready. The captain acknowledges it with a single nod. 8:30 local time. The helicopter lifts smoothly from the flight deck and rises into the clear Caribbean air. The helicopter does not rush and does not turn sharply. It climbs smoothly to a controlled height and slowly turns toward the approaching Venezuelan ships. And it is clear that this is not an attack helicopter and does not need to be one because its real purpose is visibility. As from the bridges of the Venezuelan warships, the aircraft is impossible to ignore, with clear U.S. Navy markings, sensors mounted openly, and cameras clearly pointed, with nothing hidden and nothing unclear, sending a silent but powerful message that they are being watched and recorded. As the helicopter moves to a safe side position without flying directly overhead or descending aggressively, showing presence without provocation. And at 8:32 a.m. green laser briefly appears, not as a weapon, but as a designation, touching the lead ship's bridge windows just long enough to be noticed before moving away to avoid escalation, followed by a calm and professional radio message stating that this is a United States Navy aircraft and that the Venezuelan vessels are operating unsafely in international waters and must alter course immediately. Repeated in Spanish, after which, for the first time, there is visible human reaction on the Venezuelan decks as personnel shift positions and look upward. One ship briefly reduces speed before stabilizing while the formation holds. And at 8:30 for the aircraft carrier itself remains steady with no change in speed or course as another data point is logged, while the helicopter continues its orbit and sensors keep recording, with thermal imaging capturing exhaust signatures and optical systems clearly observing deck movements, making it clear this is documentation rather than intimidation. As the closest point of approach begins to increase slightly, a small but real change, when one trailing Venezuelan ship eases back a fraction of a mile, and the lead ship holds its line briefly before adjusting course by a few degrees to widen the distance. And by 8:36, the range continues to open from 3 miles to 3.5, with the helicopter remaining overhead, the laser not reappearing, and no further radio calls needed, as no one on the carrier celebrates because this is not victory, but resolution, with the Venezuelan ships now sailing on a parallel course. Still close, but no longer forcing the situation. And at 8:38, the helicopter returns smoothly to the deck, where rotors slow. The aircraft is secured, sensors are powered down, and data is transferred. While the carrier never changes course, fires no shots, arms no missiles, and sounds no alarms. Yet the outcome is clear that 3 warships tried to apply pressure, and 1 carrier absorbed it without yielding. As by 8:40 the separation continues to widen, and the once dangerous geometry settles into controlled parallel movement, with the Venezuelan ships still visible on radar, but now reacting instead of directing. As inside the Combat Information Center tracks are reclassified, threat levels adjusted, and timelines closed because everything important has already been captured in radar logs, optical recordings, and communication archives that preserve every unanswered call and moment of silence without interpretation. While on the bridge, the carrier continues on its planned heading with no public statements, prepared because in U.S. Navy doctrine silence after control is intentional, and below-deck analysts begin reviewing electronic data, comparing radar signatures, and noting changes that may matter later. As flight operations resume normally and the ship's routine absorbs the incident without disruption, reinforcing the signal that normalcy itself is deliberate. And at 9:05, one Venezuelan ship sends a brief and formal radio message referencing routine patrol activity near national waters without directly challenging the carrier, receiving an equally formal response before communication ends, leaving no escalation and no drama. And although to outsiders the encounter may seem uneventful, professionals understand its importance lies in what did not happen, because the carrier never gave space, and in modern naval operations precedent matters more than dominance, as future encounters will be measured against who adjusted course and who did not. And for both sides, this moment quietly resets expectations, with no press conference, no official announcement, and no need for one, because the crews and planners already understand the result. As the Venezuelan ships slowly fade from the tactical display and the sea returns to routine, leaving behind no explosions or headlines, only data, doctrine, and a clear lesson that the side which forces nothing yet yields nothing often leaves the strongest impression. And by 9:30 local time, the encounter is officially over, though its implications remain as one more data point in the growing pattern of maritime pressure in the Caribbean. This was not an isolated event. And to understand why it matters, it is important to look at the broader pattern that has been developing over recent years, during which Venezuelan naval activity beyond its coastal waters has steadily increased in both scope and frequency, with more patrols being conducted, longer transits taking place, and closer approaches toward foreign vessels becoming more common. Not because these moves are meant to achieve a clear tactical victory, but because the real objective is visibility, presence, narrative leverage, and the application of pressure without firing a single shot. A strategy built on the assumption that physical proximity alone can influence or change the behavior of the other side. An assumption that was quietly but clearly challenged by what happened this morning, when the carrier did not maneuver away, did not retreat, and did not respond with force, but instead absorbed the pressure and continued on its planned course, an outcome that matters far more from a strategic perspective than any exchange of fire ever could, because naval power is not measured only in missiles, ships, or tonnage, but in what actions your presence forces others to take or fails to force them to take. And in this case, While the three Venezuelan warships did not disengage in a dramatic way or turn away at high speed, they did adjust, they widened the distance, and they gave up the initiative. And that shift alone tells the entire story. As in the hours that followed, operational planners began placing this encounter alongside similar incidents from previous months, noting that the geometry was familiar and the sequence predictable, with an approach designed to provoke a reaction, a deliberate refusal to react, and a slow de-escalation initiated not by the carrier, but by the challenger, reinforcing how quiet deterrence actually works, without loud warnings to the world or visible red lines being drawn, relying instead on consistency over time. While aboard the carrier, the crew's posture never changed. Training cycles resumed. Maintenance schedules continued without interruption. And the ship behaved as though the encounter had been expected all along, because it was, since professional navies plan for pressure, expect it, prepare for it, and never personalize it. A discipline that is visible to anyone who knows what to look for. While for Venezuela the calculation is very different, because every close approach costs fuel, time, and political capital, and every failed attempt to change U.S. behavior reinforces the reality that proximity alone does not equal leverage, since pressure that produces no result quickly loses credibility, and in this case it produced none, as by midday the carrier had moved well beyond the area of contact. The Venezuelan ships remained on separate paths, no longer converging, with no further radio calls or follow-on maneuvers, closing the encounter quietly, but leaving a message that carried weight far beyond the ships involved, a message closely observed by other regional actors, not through press releases or headlines, but through professional channels such as shared reports, naval attaches, and private briefings, where attention is paid to who held course and who adjusted, details that shape future behavior far more reliably than public statements ever could, which is exactly why restraint, when paired with real capability, becomes a powerful form of deterrence, as it denies the opponent escalation while preserving freedom of action, removes drama from the equation, and replaces it with predictability, something that consistently favors the side with deeper systems, broader alliances, and longer operational reach. As the carrier strike group continued its mission exactly as planned, with no schedule changes, no assets repositioned, and no visible reinforcements requested, an absence of reaction that was itself a clear signal that if the intent was to disrupt, it had failed, and if the intent was to test resolve, the answer had already been given, leaving analysts to later debate motivations or speculate about political messaging. While aboard the carrier, only outcomes mattered, and the outcome was simple and clear. 3 warships approached with intent. 1 carrier declined to yield. No escalation followed. And as the sun climbed higher over the Caribbean, the incident faded into routine operational memory, as just another entry logged and another lesson reinforced, showing that not every confrontation ends with force, because some are resolved the moment one side realizes that pressure alone will not move the other, a realization that is rarely announced but quietly absorbed. And by 10:15 local time, the carrier had fully exited the area, with open water ahead and no converging tracks on the tactical display, meaning that operationally the event was complete, even though strategically its implications were only beginning. As back aboard, the carrier reports were finalized, sensor data validated, timelines checked, and nothing rushed or dramatized, illustrating how professional navies turn moments into doctrine by focusing not on what almost happened, but on what was proven. Namely that the Venezuelan warships demonstrated intent through proximity, deliberately reduced margins, and waited for a reaction that never came, encountering instead a system designed to absorb pressure without emotion, to document rather than posture, and to hold course rather than assert, a difference that is decisive in modern naval operations, especially in the gray zone, where power is less about firing first and more about forcing the other side to make the first adjustment, which on this day did not come from the carrier, but from the challengers, a distinction that reshapes future encounters, because every navy studies precedent, and every captain remembers which maneuvers worked and which did not, understanding that pressure without results loses value, while restraint that preserves freedom of action gains it, reaffirming for the U.S. Navy a lesson it already knows, that presence backed by discipline is one of the most reliable tools at sea, not because it avoids conflict, but because it controls it, as the carrier's decision to hold course signaled not weakness, but confidence. Confidence in the legality of its position, confidence that its capabilities were understood, and confidence that escalation was unnecessary to maintain control. A kind of confidence that cannot be improvised, but is built through training, repetition, and institutional memory. While for Venezuela the lesson is quieter, but just as real, that close approaches carry risk without guarantee and demand precision, discipline, and a clear understanding of thresholds. A limit that was reached here when the carrier's refusal to yield rendered the maneuver ineffective, making it the most expensive kind of pressure. And as the day continued with no dramatic headlines or urgent statements, that too became part of the outcome. Because naval power, when exercised correctly, does not seek attention but predictability and stability on its own terms, as the sea rewards control rather than drama. And somewhere ahead the carrier resumed its normal rhythm of operations, while somewhere behind 3 warships continued their patrol shaped by a reality that had been quietly reinforced, with no shots fired, no missiles armed, and no voices raised. Yet one side altered its behavior, and the other did not, a difference that echoes far longer in maritime strategy than any exchange of fire, leaving an enduring lesson that when pressure meets discipline, discipline usually wins, and raising a question not for the crews involved, but for those watching from afar about which is truly the stronger weapon at sea in an era where escalation is easy and restraint is often mistaken for weakness, force itself or the confidence not to use it.